All right, joining us now in studio is a politics senior reporter, Samkele Maseko. Samkele, a very good afternoon to you. So, I mean, just after hearing the DA and hearing also from the ANC, we know that the GNU is not just about the DA and the ANC, but these are two of the largest parties within the GNU. Where we are at the moment is that we understand that the DA leader has just met with President Cyril Ramaphosa. Those talks have concluded. Just give us a sense then, where are we in terms of those talks and negotiations?
What we can say is that Helen Zille would differ with your view. She would think that the government of national unity is a love affair between the ANC and the Democratic Alliance, and that all others are just salads in the greater scheme of things when it comes to the plate on the dining table that they're currently indulging on. But what I can say is that it does seem as if the ANC and the Democratic Alliance won't reach an agreement on this particular matter. They are poles apart from one another. The Democratic Alliance feels as if they've won nothing in this government of national unity, particularly from a policy framework. The NHI was signed, the Bella Act is being implemented fully. You go to the Expropriation Act that has ultimately been signed by President Ramaphosa, which the Democratic Alliance is against, and seemingly the only thing the DA has at its arsenal at this point in time is to basically negotiate using this budget that has been proposed by the Minister of Finance, Enoch Kotongwana. But it looks as if they are being passed by time and events. As you would know, that during discussions and developments there are always changes, and at this point in time it does seem as if the ANC, Action SA, the Economic Freedom Fighters, the IFP, and other smaller political formations like the UDM as well, they are finding one another. And the Democratic Alliance, through its spokesperson, Karabo, has effectively dared the ANC to go and pass this budget without the Democratic Alliance. And one wonders, will the DA preside over a budget that they effectively did not vote for? And which is what the EFF is saying, that we can't vote for a budget that will be presided over by John Steenhuisen, Dean McPherson, Siviwe Khwarube, and many other Democratic Alliance ministers that are refusing to pass this particular budget. And Fikile Mbalula went far as to saying that if the DA does not vote for this budget, there will be implications. They are not wielding an axe to anyone. People will remove themselves from the government of national unity pot.
I mean, despite this being a numbers game, right, and just listening to what you're saying, one did get a sense, particularly after the NEC meeting, that the ANC members, at least some, are very confident that this budget will be passed with or without the DA. But it being a numbers game, speak to us then a little bit about, your earlier comments about who the ANC is then likely to approach, and what would that scenario look like, particularly if you bring in the EFF, if you bring in the MK party?
We are pretty much like in the situation of the United States of America's politics at this point in time, where lobbying becomes very important, particularly in the last few hours. You did see that Fikile Mbalula said that negotiations ended at around 3 o'clock this morning, with them engaging with the DA, the EFF, and other political formations. In fact, as the briefing was continuing with the African National Congress earlier on with their Secretary General, after that briefing I got a message from a leader of the Economic Freedom Fighters who said and retweeted what was sending me what Mbalula had said in his briefing that I had put on social media platforms, that in fact we are finding one another, we are moving closer and going further. That were the comments of the Economic Freedom Fighters, a source from the EFF, which basically means that the ANC and the EFF are moving closer to one another, finding one another. Negotiations are still continuing with the Economic Freedom Fighters, but speaking to the various negotiators from the DA, from the ANC, from the EFF as well, mostly the ANC sources are saying that the Democratic Alliance is unreasonable at this point in time. It does not look like we will find an agreement with them. They are negotiating on political scoring at this point in time, and not negotiating in good faith. To them, it's about getting a good, favorable deal for themselves, that they will go out there first and publicize and communicate on behalf of themselves, because they've lost so many policy battles within this government of national unity, and it seemingly looks like everything is going to the ANC. For one, the Democratic Alliance wanted a slice of the pie when it comes to the economic policies of the country. When it comes to international relations, they wanted the port to be seized from being a national competency and relegated to the various provinces, such as the port in the Western Cape. they wanted rail infrastructure, particularly PRASA, to be dismantled, and for the rail infrastructure of the Western Cape to be controlled by the Western Cape provincial government, which is one of the sticking points that have been complained about by the Democratic Alliance, and which is also an area where the underworld is seemingly operating in a lot when it comes to the refurbishment of rail, particularly within the province of the Western Cape and other provinces. So these are some of the issues that the DA is negotiating in what I would say it in isiZulu, bazingela bephethichiwa, bazingela bephethu sawoti. So they are hunting with salt in hand when it comes to these particular negotiations with the ANC. But the ANC in itself is unwilling to make concessions on key policy frameworks that if they were to repeal the Bella Act, NHI, and the Expropriation Act, they will be perceived as selling out on progressive policies that they have put into law. So one can safely say that when it comes to voting, it does seem as if smaller parties that are within the GNU will vote with the ANC on this particular matter. The EFF is also negotiating. Those discussions are not yet concluded, but they are very close to one another and going even further than being close, which is what a source in the EFF said to us.
And I'm glad you mentioned what a favorite deal for the DA would look like, because you've touched on those numbers, and I wanted to speak then, as we wrap our conversation, around what feelings you're getting on the ground in as far as the EFF is concerned. Would then the EFF be signing on the dotted line perhaps once those concluded, once those remarks, those talks are concluded? Where does that put the MK party with the EFF party? Any wranglings around what that would essentially mean?
Is there still a relationship between the MK party and the EFF?
Exactly the question.
There's seemingly no relationship apart from voting on an issue-to-issue basis with one another within the National Assembly, but outside of Parliament and the various parliamentary committees, Julius Malema has categorically put it that there is no relationship between the MK party and the EFF. They don't even want the MK party at their funerals, at their weddings, at their birthday parties. They have no relationship with the MK. They don't even want to sit with them at the presidential suite in football games. That is how far the depth of the hatred that is there between the EFF and the MK party, particularly from the EFF side, knowing what the MK party has done to the EFF electorally and taking their former deputy president, who's now the MKP Secretary General. The EFF finds itself at a crossroads politically. The MK party is eating it up. They went in hard on their negotiations with the ANC. The Progressive Caucus is seemingly not as progressive as they thought it would be for them, because the MK party is trying to eat up the EFF. So they are caught at a crossroads. They have to choose whether they turn left or they turn right. They can no longer only look towards the left of the MK party. They have got to put another foot in on the right-hand side, and which is what they are practically doing now in saying, ANC, come, let's negotiate, let's run this country together with smaller parties, but kick out the Democratic Alliance and kick out the Freedom Front Plus. But the ANC, as Fikile Mbalula said, we're not wielding an axe to anyone. People will work themselves out of the government of national unity. I don't see the Democratic Alliance continuing to be part of a government that they refuse to pass a budget off, and I don't see the majority party wanting to keep the DA in key ministerial positions such as public works, if one may put it like that, such as one as home affairs for a budget, and education, which has a large chunk of the budget that has been allocated by the Minister of Finance, Enoch Godongwana. It's close to about 50 billion or so that has been allocated to basic education within the country, that they would still want the DA in those critical portfolios. So Julius Malema, as he was saying a few years ago, 2018 or so, not even 2018, 2022, when that report of Phala Phala came out that Didi Mabuza is busy training to become the president of the president of the country after Ramaphosa. I think he himself is hard at the gym, preparing for that ministerial post, that should the reconfiguration of the GNU happen, he will get a critical portfolio.
Well, it's certainly looking very interesting then for the other parties that are outside of the two biggest parties within the GNU.
It is looking really interesting, particularly noting that I was just on a call with one, can't say the name, but one highly placed source within the African National Congress. His words, I'll say it in isiXhosa, isiZulu, that was communicated upon. Angeke silawulwe uJohn Steenhuisen. We will not be led by John Steenhuisen.
All right, interesting developments. Let's leave it there. Samkele, thank you so much for that. Of course, that was our senior politics reporter, Samkele Maseko, in studio with me. Of course, this as the political parties fail to find consensus then in order to pass that budget.